Hey, this is Web3 Talks. The rule of this podcast is simple. We only talk with people who have hands-on Web3 building experience. So if you are a hacker, entrepreneur, or investor, you can get inspired by their stories, lessons, and fuck-ups. My name is Mac, and I'm hosting this pod. If you want to stay in touch, go to twitter.com/Web3Talks, click the link in the pinned tweet, and join our Discord community. Let's go. Today's guest is Leighton Cusack, co-founder of one of the most amazing DeFi projects out there called PoolTogether. The PoolTogether's value proposition is brilliantly simple. You deposit your money like in a savings account, but instead of getting like 0.1% return a year, you get a chance to win a prize. And if you don't win, you keep your money. So the funny thing is like it really encourages saving. And the reason I love it is that it adds a lot of thrill to that. And I like risk taking. So I really like, getting more excited about my saving. So the luckiest winner ever deposited $73 and won $11,000 in USDC and even much more in compound tokens. So it was altogether, as far as I remember, $43,000 worth of tokens.
Yeah, that's right.
And it is, I calculated that actually, and it's 589x return, which is remarkable.
That's a good return.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Even if you invest in shitcoin, it's really, really good. So Leighton, could you tell us how this whole idea started? What's the story?
Yeah, the genesis for PoolTogether was that I was sort of doing a lot of research on what are financial tools that have been helpful in creating economic mobility, basically in making people more rich. Like what historically have been things that have been invented, financial tools that have been invented that have helped people become more wealthy. And in the course of my research on that topic, I came across this idea of prize-linked savings accounts. Sometimes they're called no-loss lotteries. And I found that this is an economic tool that there's a lot of research supporting the fact that it helps people save money for the first time. It helps people avoid spending money on lottery tickets. It helps people open savings accounts if they've never used them before. And so I thought, wow, this is a really powerful and helpful tool. And I thought this would work way better if it was built on a blockchain. And so this was in, sort of late 2018, early 2019 that I was starting to think about this, and early 2019 starting to begin to work on it. That's sort of the genesis of PoolTogether. So, the thing I'll say really quickly is a lot of people think PoolTogether is sort of only a DeFi protocol, but I guess PoolTogether is only a DeFi protocol. But the concept is actually well established in the quote unquote real world. Obviously, it works a lot better as a DeFi protocol, but yeah, it's another financial primitive that has a lot of usage. There's over in the traditional financial system, there's over $100 billion deposited into prize savings accounts. So it's not a small thing.
Mm-hmm. So it's actually one of the few ideas that really need blockchain to thrive. As far as I understand, it makes it makes it more scalable and transparent, because I can imagine that running in a TradFi world is a pretty complex. Who audits, for example, the lottery?
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of complications when it's run in TradFi. One of them, which is who actually audits this for fairness? How can you actually ensure this is fair? So obviously on the blockchain, the code is all open source. The randomness is ensured by the Chainlink VRF. And so you can actually know that it's fair. So that's one big thing. Mm-hmm. Another big thing is just scalability, right? If it's built as a DeFi protocol, there's no incremental cost to adding new users, right? More people can deposit, and that doesn't cost anything. If you look at how prize savings function in the traditional financial system, they usually have a lot of stipulations around them. They have things like, you have to be deposited for at least 30 days. You have to have at least this much deposited. You can't withdraw until only these days. And they do that because it can be very costly to administrate. And so by eliminating that and automating that with smart contracts, you can have a far, far more efficient system. So those are a couple ways. Obviously, it's also composable. People can integrate with it. It's ultimately user owned, which is really cool with the pool token. So the users can own the protocol, which is an amazing thing. So that's just a couple of things. But yeah, I would say it's an idea that really clearly works better on a blockchain.
Yeah, and the process is pretty smooth. Like I tried it, obviously. Like I try all the products that I invite founders of. So I tried it. It's super smooth. It takes, I don't know, 3 clicks or something like that, and your funds are deposited. So I'm wondering, like, how does it work technically? Like, what's under the hood apart from this training VRF that you mentioned? What's like the whole process?
Yeah, good question. So I'll go. I know it's a technical audience, so I'll go fairly technical. Okay, so PoolTogether, one of the things I love about it is it has a non-custodial design, which I assume most people know what that means. But to further clarify, it basically means when you deposit into the protocol, no one has the ability to access those funds. There's no multi-sig. Even the governance of the protocol, the pool token holders, they don't have the ability to access your deposit. So basically, when you deposit, it goes into the prize pool contract. And that is a non-custodial, non-upgradable contract that stores the funds and manages the interaction with the yield service. So each prize pool is connected to a yield source, primarily Aave, also Compound. The protocol is very conservative in what yield sources it integrates with. And again, to keep it no loss, to make sure there's no loss of any sort. So there's a prize pool, non-custodial, non-upgradable contract. That is what people deposit into. Then from there, it goes into the yield source. Then what happens is everyone's deposits go into this yield source and are all generating yield. And then at a periodic interval, the VRF is called, and that generates a random number, which is then used to distribute the amount of yield that's been generated on deposits. And that yield is distributed based on there's a price tiering contract. And the price tiering contract basically defines how the yield is distributed. Because if you think about it, you can, say you have $10,000 of yield, there's lots of ways you could distribute that. You could have one $10,000 prize, you could have 10 $1,000 prizes, you could have one $1,000 prize and $100 prizes or whatever. I'm not sure if the math is right, but so that's sort of how it works. So basically, and then the yield is distributed as PoolTogether deposits, tokens. So like if you win a prize, it's distributed in the PoolTogether deposit token. So it automatically increases your chances to win. And then when you withdraw at any time, it's always a 1-to-1 ratio. If you have 100, deposit tokens, you get 100 USDC when you withdraw. So that's sort of the details of it. I will say one thing too, sort of at a high level, the way I would think about the protocol is that it's really like a gamification layer on top of yield generation. So it can plug into a lot of different yield sources, and then it combines that yield and it redistributes it in interesting ways. And the way it redistributes it doesn't even have to be random. So we've done pools where you deposit and all the yield goes to like a charity, or you could potentially use it. You could use the yield for a lot of different purposes. Obviously, the primary way the protocol has been optimized for is this sort of prize savings use case. But technically speaking, the protocol is built in a very generalized way.
It's really interesting that you can change the way this pool works, because it provides a lot of options. Like, the first thing that I thought about, like regarding this charity that you mentioned, I can imagine, in the future that some big corporation might make this, pool for their employees. So like, pool your money for like a month and we will give the yield to the charity of your choice or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's all sorts of like applications for it. And I'm excited to see what people, build on top of the protocol.
As you said, like this model of this price savings isn't something new. It's been, present in TradFi. But I guess, it took a lot of education to convince people that, this too good to be true model is actually true, because, especially given so many scams that were too good to be true actually turned out to be too good to be true. So like, how have you educated the market and acquired your first users?
All right. Well, I'll start with the second part of that question. How did we acquire our first users? So, the first version of PoolTogether launched in May of 2019. And if you were in DeFi at that time, there was not much going on. I think the total ceiling of DAI at the time, I think was the DAI stablecoin, I think was like 100 or 10 million. So at that time, we basically just pushed it out to Twitter, and that's how people found out about it, because it was a small enough community that if you publish something interesting, DeFi related, everyone would know about it. Historically, though, our primary growth strategy, and what continues to be our growth strategy, is, at least at the protocol level, what continues to be the growth strategy is to really just focus on integrations. So the primary way that the protocol has gotten usage is by being integrated into and being sort of prominently featured in various wallets like MetaMask or Rainbow or Coinbase and other wallets that feature the PoolTogether protocol. And of course, for them, the value proposition is that this is like an interesting DeFi use case. And so it's a cool thing to show their users. And that has been like the primary way that the PoolTogether protocol has grown. So the protocol itself, there's never been any like direct, really consumer marketing. There is a very active community on Discord that I'm a part of around the protocol. There's a lot of people who help with translations. That would be one other thing I would mention in terms of getting our early users is we've always taken translations really seriously. I think the protocol, or I think the PoolTogether app is currently translated into like 11 languages. All of those are maintained by people who do it on a volunteer basis. So it's just people who are passionate about the protocol and helping people save that do this. And yeah, so also like taking those translations seriously and taking the global audience seriously has been another thing that's been really important. But I would basically say from the protocol side, the key strategy is not us trying to say, hey, how do we sort of like get more users? The key strategy is just saying, how do we build a really secure, robust, and healthy protocol that then a lot of people want to integrate with, and that's how the users come to the protocol.
Okay, and you mentioned this health and being safe. So like, all DeFi projects have security risks. So I'm wondering, like, how do you mitigate them in your case? Like, what's your, go-to strategy about it?
Yeah. So a couple things in terms of mitigating security risks. I mean, it starts with really what's the surface area? What's the attack surface area, right? And keeping that as small as possible. So the protocol has a relatively small attack surface area because of a couple things. One, it's non-custodial, like I was saying. So there's no way, there's no admin keys, there's no multi-sig, there's no governance control of deposits. And so that in and of itself eliminates a whole attack vector. There's a whole bunch of ways that people can't attack the protocol. So that keeps it really secure. The other thing is there's no Oracle dependencies. So if you look at most hacks, a lot of them have to relate to Oracle manipulation or assuming a price of an asset and that asset price being manipulated and that leading to loss of funds. We optimize for security by keeping the protocol design as simple as possible. The lowest number of dependencies, no governance controls or very minimal governance controls if there are any, and no governance controls as it relates to actual custody of funds. That's sort of at the design phase. And then at the implementation phase, just having good internal testing, having a robust bug bounty program. The protocol does have a robust bug bounty program. We've paid out over $100,000 in bounties for bugs that have been found. And then on top of that, we've probably paid at this point, I would say probably at least $1 million in terms of third-party security audits as well. And so whether that's Open Zeppelin or Code Arena or Trail of Bits or other auditors. Actually, I don't think Trail of Bits has ever audited. I'm not sure if they've audited the code, but but they would probably put about $1 million into third-party code audits, put money into bug bounties, pay out the bug bounties. That's obviously a very important thing. Make sure they get paid out. Strong internal processes, and then also just a design that minimizes the surface area for attack.
Yeah, like it's really interesting. Like the way that like your best, like the core of your security strategy is simplicity. I might say,
yes, yeah. Simplicity and non-custodial. It's the principles of DeFi, right? Non-custodial, decentralized. No one has access to it because a lot of these hacks too. It has to do with a multi-sig gets compromised, but there should never be a multi-sig that can get compromised that leads to the loss of user funds. Now, maybe there could be a loss of some auxiliary funds held by a multi-sig for a different purpose, but user funds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it's like, that DAO's funds that they want to spend on, I don't know, R&D or whatever, then it's okay. But yeah.
Right.
Okay. And I'm wondering, because we started to talk about this user acquisition, and could you also tell a little bit about the market education? Because, you said that you mainly grow through partnerships, but like, how do you make sure that the users of these partners, MetaMask and all the other wallets, they know how this PoolTogether works? Do you give them some materials, or do you do it or yourself or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely improve on that. We do try to create materials. So if a wallet's going to be integrated, there's a good user documentation, docs.pooltogether.com. That's the users documentation. There's also dev.pooltogether.com for developers. But if you go to docs.pooltogether.com, you'll see good tutorials. So it's like, hey, if you're using this network and this wallet, here's how to deposit. So yes, we do that. But I would say overall, we do still have that problem that you talked about, which is that a lot of people still think, oh, this is just too good to be true, or they just look at it for one split second and they think, oh, this is a scam and I'm not going to touch it. And so I do think there still is a long way for us in terms of helping people really. And I think we probably take for granted, like after doing this for so long, I take this for granted. Like, oh, of course people know what PoolTogether is. And of course people know why this is good for you. And of course people know why this is not a lottery. But I don't know that other people who haven't spent any time on this might not know that actually. And so I actually do think, that's probably a question that we should spend more time working on. But the things I mentioned is what we're doing right now.
So like, I will get to this like sensitive part, because I know that there's been a quite important lawsuit right now against PoolTogether. I know that you cannot comment on that because it's still ongoing.
Right.
So, let's talk about your reaction to that. And with reaction, I mean this NFT collection called Poolies that you created to crowdfund your defense. Could you tell about the story behind this project? Why have you chosen Poolies, which are basically birds?
Yeah.
What's the story?
Yeah, for sure. So, like you said, I can't really speak to specifics of the lawsuit because it's ongoing litigation, but I can refer people. There's actually a website for the audience who's not aware of this. There's a website. It's mint.pooltogether.com. And you can go there and there's a link to a Wall Street Journal article as well as some of the court filings about this lawsuit. And again, without commenting on specifics, I can say it's something that, we obviously believe doesn't have any legal merits, the lawsuit. And also it's something that we also believe is important to crypto in general. And so with that in mind, when the lawsuit was filed, we had a lot of people who reached out who wanted to help us and who were like, hey, how can we support? And we thought what would be a good idea to give people a practical way to help would be to do this NFT sale. And so we did this NFT sale. And again, if you go to mint.pooltogether.com, you can see the art. And the art is the Poolies. And the Poolies are really cool. If you look at them, they're just like this really like cute, endearing image that I think really embodies the spirit around the PoolTogether Inc., the company, and also the protocol. So the NFT series was created by this artist, David. So there's a community member named Oops, and he originally created the Poolie image, and then David created the NFT editions of them. And it really kind of took off, and a lot of people were using it as their avatars on Twitter, their profile pictures on Twitter. And there's actually now also a Friends of Poolie DAO that has been created that is sort of carrying on this mission of broadly of like defending DeFi. That was an amazing thing that happened this year, at least for me personally, just in terms of having so much support from the crypto community, having so many people reach out with just, either encouragement or just, or also practical help. So I'm greatly indebted to the DeFi community for all that help and really thankful for how well the sale went.
Yeah, to give people a perspective, you raised over $1 million through this NFT sale, which is like really remarkable amount of money.
It definitely blew us away. Yeah, to give perspective, the sale is priced in ETH. So obviously as the price of ETH changes, it goes up and down. But it was basically, I think in total about 1.5 million in terms of US dollar value. If you calculated it today, it would be a bit less. But But yeah, it was a very significant amount of money, which is, useful because, as your audience probably also knows, anything related to legal tends to be very expensive.
Yeah. And by the way, I know that it was limited. The mint was time limited. As far as I remember, it was like 4 weeks or something like that. So I'm wondering, why have you chosen this time frame?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, in general, I like the idea of time limited mints as opposed to, a lot of mints are limited by number. It's like there's only 10,000. But I think time is interesting because there is still a limit, but as many people can do it as they want to in that period of time. So, we just thought it would be better we did have a specific goal in terms of how much money we were hoping to get from the sale. And so we just thought it would be better to sort of coordinate all the efforts around a small window of time. And then also, then once that ends, people can sort of build around it. And because now there's a fixed supply. Now it's like, there's only so many Poolies, and it actually makes it more interesting to build on top of.
Yeah, and I think even one fund bought the Poolie. I think A16Z bought the Judge Poolie, like this, like the most expensive one, as far as I remember.
Or 75E. So like $150,000. So yeah, I mean, and the amazing thing about that is A16Z is not even an investor in our company, in PoolTogether Inc. They're not an investor. They just did that to support. So that was awesome. That was amazing. A big shout out to them for, that's obviously not really in self-interest. That's just them helping out.
Yeah, that's really cool. So yeah, this is like, the power of NFT that, if you said, hey guys, just if you want to help us drop some funds to PoolTogether, if it might not work as well, but if people can get these cute birds that just lay in their wallets, and I have one as well, and it's like totally different thing. I don't know why, but like psychologically, I felt that I want this bird as a proof that I helped, like something to remember. Just like you can sometimes get this kind of like certificate or like some kind of statue as a person that funds some charity. It's nice to have this kind of thing somewhere.
Yeah, no. Well, first off, thank you for buying one. Really appreciate that. But also, I think you're totally right. It's interesting because in some ways, if you think of it sort of from a purely logical perspective, it doesn't really matter. It's like, do I get an NFT or not? But the NFTs, NFTs are cool. They're fun. They're interesting, and it's in the same way that from a purely logical perspective, like, why do I care about having a signed copy of a book when I could just get the book, It's like I can buy the book and it has the exact same content, but for some reason I pay more for the signed copy. And in the same way, I pay more for a limited edition NFT than I would for one that's unlimited or whatever, So it is human psychology, but I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, and it also had some utility. I remember when I wanted to create an account on Lens Protocol, I was like, I need to be whitelisted. But it turned out that Poolie holders were whitelisted there. And, you could create an account very, very early. So it was a nice surprise.
That was a huge, awesome thing they did as well. Big shout out to them as well. And and I hope there'll be more stuff. I think there will be more stuff. I hope there'll be more stuff for sure in the future for Poolie holders. So
it's like a proof of caring, kind of like because if you care enough, just like Gitcoin grants, if you support these people, the builders, and also more established builders like you have like this blockchain proof that you care. So it's nice to connect people like that together.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a good signal. It's a very good group of people. I would trust anyone who holds a Poolie. I would trust them.
Okay. How have you found a lawyer for this kind of case? Because, I guess there aren't too many lawyers experienced in this kind of stuff because it's very new.
Yeah, it is pretty new. Our primary representation is a firm called Paul Hastings, and although it is pretty new, it's a large firm. They have a lot of specialties and they have a lot of competencies in this area. So I feel really, really fortunate to work with them, and they're a great law firm.
Okay. Yeah, it reminds me of what Chris Dixon said, that, their portfolio companies spent more on lawyers than on marketing. So, it kind of proves his point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
So, I'm wondering because, PoolTogether has been around for a while, like it's around 3 years already. And I
Right.
personally think that it might thrive in the bear market because people might want to stick to stable coins, but they also want some adrenaline. So
Right.
I think PoolTogether might be a good choice for that. But I'm wondering, like, what are your predictions about PoolTogether for the next, 2, 3 years? Like, what needs to happen so that PoolTogether reaches like a truly global adoption?
Yeah. Okay. That's a great question. So there's a couple ways to answer that. The first way I'd answer it is for PoolTogether to reach truly global adoption. There's three things that need to happen. One is, well, let me start with the most important. The first is the protocol needs to maintain no loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
It needs to stay secure. It needs to never be hacked. It needs to never lose people's funds. And I just say that because I think that's the easiest to take for granted. People just assume, but security should never be taken for granted. It's something that should be worked towards every day to make things more and more secure. So for the protocol to be truly global infrastructure for prize savings around the world and to secure hundreds of billions of dollars, it's going to have to be trusted, right? And so it needs to be secure. So that's the first thing. Second thing is there needs to be really big prizes. That's sort of my core belief. I think the growth story for PoolTogether is basically that we need to get, let's say we need to get the weekly no loss prize to $250,000. I think $250,000. And I think once we can get to that stage, which isn't that much money, you have to have about $500 million deposited at a 3% APR to be generating about $280,000 a week in yield. So once I think you can get to that level, that's where you get to this level where viral growth starts taking off. Because then people who aren't even interested in crypto are like, hey, I want to put $10 into this thing because it's just this really fun global savings account, right? And so I think for PoolTogether to really take off, it has to hit some of these benchmarks in terms of like how big prizes are to get to this really exciting level that generates enough excitement to drive more deposits to make the prizes even bigger. So that's the second thing that needs to happen. Third thing that needs to happen is it just needs to keep getting easier and easier to use DeFi. And that means setting up a wallet, securing a wallet, depositing into protocols, using L2s, converting your money from fiat to crypto. Like those things need to keep getting easier and easier. So I think with all those things, and all those things are moving in the right direction. We're going in the right direction on all those things, but maintaining and accelerating those things is what will make PoolTogether really become the global infrastructure for prize savings.
Yeah, like, I have, no words to add to this beautiful vision. Like,
That's good.
Yeah, my fingers are really crossed because I think especially in, developing countries where, people kind of like they have only like $5, $10, $100 to save. Like for them, it might be, if they even like, put $100 there and get $100 price, it may be like really, maybe not life changing, but at least like, week changing or like a month changing money for them.
No, that is life changing. I mean, I think we had someone, this is really eye opening for me. There's a really active user in our community who's in Argentina. He said, hey, if I win $1, to me, that's like that's like a day. That's like a day set. That's like how much money I make in a day. That's like 1/30th of my monthly salary. It's really interesting to think about how for someone in certain countries, winning $1, $10, $100 can actually be maybe not life-changing, but can change the course of their month or their year. And so it's really, really awesome to think about that. And it just makes me really excited to get this tool into more hands of people. And also, even just being able to save their money in USDC, right? Like we know that's so important for people. And, that inflation is such a hot topic right now. And although the US dollar is also inflating, compared to other countries, it's doing a lot better. And so just being able to offer that is huge.
Yeah. So Leighton, I'm wondering, like, apart from the things that we discussed, like, what were the hardest things about operating PoolTogether? Because we mentioned security, we mentioned like the legal part. So I'm wondering, do you have other challenges that are, sometimes getting really hard?
I think, protocol design is hard because it is, a lot of people talk about this. It's more like hardware almost, where because once you build something, you can't just change it. And so that's hard. Protocol design, how, making sure you design it in the right way, because and trying to balance this like desire to ship and iterate, but also this the limitations of smart contracts. So that's definitely hard. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff, but I think what I'll say, what makes all those hard things easier is having a really large and awesome community around the protocol, and that's what PoolTogether has. There's a lot of people around the protocol who are supporting the growth, who are interested in helping, who see the mission and the vision and are excited about it, and that's really cool. So that's something that really helps.
How do you take care of this community? Is it just like a Discord channel, or do you have some, weekly meetings or anything like that? Do you have any structure?
Yeah, all the above. We have a Discord. We do have every Friday we have a community call, and that's very well attended. So that's like a very big way for the community to stay up to date. We also have a governance forum, gov.pooltogether.com. People can share their thoughts. But yeah, so we have a few different formats, but overall it's just a very, very active community with a lot of participation. So that's what makes it really awesome.
PoolTogether is one of these projects that really makes sense when it comes to putting it on blockchain. And, blockchain fixes this. Right. It's like a meme, and it's been a meme for a pretty long time. So I'm wondering, do you know any other traditional finance models that might really flourish when you use blockchain them, or any maybe even non-financial models, some ideas that you might have?
Well, I mean, I think this is maybe obvious. It's not a new one, but I do think the whole crowdfunding, right? That's something that works way better on a blockchain. It's already pretty popular in the quote unquote traditional financial world with things like Kickstarter. But I think that is something that also really clearly works way better on a blockchain. Yeah, that's what comes to mind right now. I mean, yeah, I think anything where you're sort of capital formation, trying to bring capital together quickly, that's going to really excel on a blockchain.
Yeah. This crowdfunding, because you don't pay this transaction tax. Obviously, you pay some gas fee, but if you do it on Polygon, it's almost nothing, or like Solana or any other low cost blockchain. So people from all over the world can just do this transaction. And I was talking with one friend of mine, and he said, yeah, but why would you use this USDC or any other stables when you have Stripe? And, I said, okay, but Stripe takes, around 2%, even a little bit more. And he said, yeah, but who cares? And I said, hey, bro, imagine that you can have 2% more profit, or you can give it back to your user. It's a lot. Especially when you think about, e-commerce, where you have trillions of dollars going on, 2% is a lot of money. So in crowdfunding, when you're raising, I don't know, 100K, 2% is $2,000. So it's a lot of money. So
yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot of money. Maybe I think when you talk to a business owner, they would say it's a lot of money.
Yeah. I have a few questions that I always ask every guest. So I will proceed, if you will.
Yeah.
So the first one is, if you had a magic wand and you could fix one thing about Web3, what would you fix?
I would fix the scams, the phishing, and there's a variability of scamming, right? There's phishing, things like that, where it's literally scams. And then there's projects that are sort of like scams, maybe. But yeah, that stuff makes me really sad, because it makes us all look bad. It hurts a lot of people, and it forces regulation,
Yeah.
Because the more that scams happen, the more that regulators are going to regulate. And when they regulate, they're not going to regulate the scammers because they're scamming. They're not going to regulate them. They're going to regulate the people who are actually trying to do something good in the world. And so that would be the problem I'd try and fix.
Yeah, if they could regulate, fake MetaMask support and fake CZ, and fake Vitaliks on Twitter, they would do it. But it's hard to regulate that kind of stuff. Right. And also regarding the regulations, I talked with some guy on Twitter, and he said, yeah, you need to regulate DeFi because of Celsius, which is not DeFi, but whatever.
Right. But right, exactly.
And I said, bro, but there's a thing called shadow banking, and it's not regulated, even though, it's traditional finance.
Right.
And it's huge. It's bigger than crypto. So how can you say that they will fix, crypto with regulation if they cannot fix traditional finance with regulation? So like, because there are always people will try to, go around and, scam people. Like it will happen. So
Right.
So
yeah, I mean that's a whole other thing. If you look at, there was more money paid to banks in overdraft fees in 2021 than there was in DeFi, all of DeFi hacks and scams combined. So
wow.
yeah, I mean you can look at the comparisons, and yeah, you can look at the comparisons, but that's still not an excuse. We still want to do better.
Yeah. And so I will go to the second question. What were the most mind-blowing projects that you've seen in this space? And funny thing, like two of my guests answered PoolTogether. So
that's great.
Yeah. So you blow people's minds.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, when I first used like MakerDAO and Compound, that definitely blew my mind. The first time I used it, it was just amazing. Like locking ETH, creating DAI, depositing it, and earning interest. That was so cool. That was awesome. More recently, I think Gearbox protocol is really, really cool. The way they do, like, they give you leverage without needing to, how should I word it? You can get leverage without taking on the risk. It's interesting.
How
Gearbox
is
really interesting. You can, because basically you're essentially using like a smart contract wallet, and so like you deposit into the smart contract, and then you can do things within that smart contract wallet. So they can always sort of take the whole thing back from you. But it's anyways, I'm not describing it well, but that's really cool.
Okay.
But I mean, also Uniswap, right? Uniswap, people take it for granted, but if you don't understand Uniswap, you don't understand DeFi. That's what I would say. And so if you're new to DeFi, understand Uniswap. It's beautiful. I don't think there's ever been humans that have coordinated at such a large scale like Uniswap before. You have people, LPs, buyers and sellers all coming together with zero, just facilitated by software, purely by software, autonomous software. So those are some of the really cool things I'm thinking about right now.
For me, one of these magical moments was when I first added a coin to Uniswap just to trade, that I just, copy paste a contract and I can trade. Like this is like crazy for me.
Yep. Permissionless market creation is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, it was a shitcoin, but a good shitcoin. So that's okay. So so I have another question that I always ask, and it's like, what has been the funnest thing that happened to you? Something that made you smile, laugh?
I mean, probably the first Uniswap airdrop, because that was amazing. That was like the first airdrop that ever happened, and that was just like, what? It was just a whole new paradigm, and people have gotten really cynical about airdrops, and I think that's really sad because airdrops are still magical. It's still an amazing idea of like giving ownership to the users. I love it, and although people take advantage of it and all that kind of stuff, but the first Uniswap airdrop was definitely a magical moment. NFTs are also a lot of fun. There's probably starting PleasureDAO. I started PleasureDAO. I was one of the founders of PleasureDAO. That was really magical, kind of seeing everybody come together and using crypto to facilitate that. That was probably another really magical moment for me.
Haven't you bought this Wu-Tang Clan album?
Yes, PleasureDAO did. Yeah, not me personally, but PleasureDAO. Yeah.
So is it good? I know that you cannot, just let people listen to it.
We did a listening party, but I was not available. I was actually having a meeting with my lawyers. I couldn't go to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this was like this kind of like a headline crypto moment. When I've seen that you as a DAO that you bought it, like it was super cool.
Yeah, it was fun. Definitely fun.
So what were other like projects that you did in PleasureDAO? Because I know it because of the Wu-Tang Clan album, but I'm not aware of the other actions that you did.
Well, we've just collected some of like what we would consider to be the most sort of important NFTs. So we bought the Doge NFT. We bought the Snowden NFT, the Tor NFT, People Pleasers NFT that she did for Uniswap V3 launch. So it's been all just like very culturally important NFTs.
Okay, cool. And do you have any like a vision behind it? Do you want to like, any other steps that you want to take?
Well, yeah, there's a lot going on with PoolTogether. I'm not like operationally involved in it at this point. So there's a whole team that's working full time on it. So I'm not going to speak for them, but there's definitely a lot of cool stuff they're working on.
Okay. So I'm going like after we finish this episode, I'm going to update myself because I've been following it like, a year ago or something when the Wu-Tang info broke, and this is a really interesting project. Okay, so if people who have been listening want to learn more about PoolTogether, where should they go? Like, what's the best place? The best place to land?
Well, if you're really technical, go to dev.pooltogether.com and read the developer docs. It's well documented. It goes into detail about everything. If you're just a user, but you're passionate, go to docs.pooltogether.com because that documentation is really good. And then if you're just someone who wants, the 5-minute thing, I would say just go to our website, pooltogether.com, and there's a video that you can play that's like an overview of what it all is. And that's more digestible. But if you really want to dive deep, go to the developer docs or the user docs.
Okay. And should they go to Twitter or Discord as well?
Yeah, that's a good way to stay up to date for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Twitter PoolTogether is Twitter, and then our Discord, in terms of like actually joining the community, that would be on Discord.
Okay, perfect. So Leighton, I will ask you the last question that I have for today, and it's whom should I invite next? Because this is all about builders, and by the way, this is episode number 30, so you got a very cool round number. So I'm always looking for people who build something interesting in either DeFi, but also like NFT space or any other spaces related to crypto. So I'm wondering, do you have any like top of mind ideas for guests?
Well, I mentioned Gearbox Protocol. So Ivan, who I think is the founder there, that might be someone who I'd recommend. I would also I think that would be an interesting DeFi person. And then maybe someone from the NFT world, but I'm not sure who it would be. I need to think about that a little bit more. But I think Ivan, I would definitely recommend.
Okay. I will learn more about Gearbox because I've seen it somewhere on Twitter. I was scrolling and someone was saying that it's super cool idea and so on. But the funny thing,
right?
It sounded too good to be true, so I thought it's a scam, just like people have with PoolTogether. So I have fallen into this trap, so I'm going to explore it more and just learn what's under the hood. Yeah. Okay. So Leighton, thanks a lot. And one thing that I will say as this closing statement, that you still can mint a Poolie. So if you listen to this and you want to support PoolTogether, you can mint a Poolie.
Well, no, you can't.
You can't?
The Poolies have minted out.
Really? Really?
Yeah, there's no more minting of Poolies.
No more Poolies. Oh my god!
You could buy one. You could buy one on secondary if you wanted to.
Okay. So you can buy one on OpenSea, I guess, or okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I thought some were available. Yeah, but if you minted them out, they were 10,000 or something like this.
Yeah, you could only mint them for 4 weeks. I think we had the minting open for, and then it ended.
Okay, so Leighton, thanks a lot. It's been super interesting. Thanks for telling a lot about the backstage of PoolTogether. I'm crossing my fingers for the development because this is my top 10 favorite projects of all time in crypto. So
awesome.
I'm very happy. And also thanks to Travis for connecting us.
Yeah, he's great. Awesome.
So this is almost the end. But if you like this episode and don't want to miss the next ones, feel free to subscribe. If you liked it a lot, I'd be personally grateful if you could give us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever platform you use. Thanks to these ratings, more people can learn about Web3 Talks, and it's really important to me. That's all for today. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.